So a little bit of introduction of us, who we are. So it's me, Onnesha. I'm doing my master's in education and globalization at the University of Oulu.
I'm Nathalia.
Sure.
I'm Nathalia, and I'm also a student from AdGlo, the Master of Education and Globalization at the University of Oulu.
And my name is Anaïs, and I'm also an AdGlo student.
So we have actually some safe space rules in order to make the workshop a discrimination-free and harassment-free zone. Please listen to this carefully. Please respect and listen to others' opinion. Don't be condescending. Please don't make assumptions about other people's nationality, religion, gender, and other personal matters. Be open to discussion with others and to new perspectives. Try to create a positive and respectful atmosphere in the discussion. If you disagree with someone, try to raise the matter in a constructive and friendly manner. If the situation feels uncomfortable, please raise the issue. For example, chat with the moderators privately. The moderators may ask a participant to leave the workshop if they continuously fail to respect the safe space rules. So if you agree to these safe space rules, please give a thumbs up so that we can see all of you agree and feel comfortable. Okay, I can see all of you gave a thumbs up, so we are moving to the next portion of our workshop. So why did we choose this topic? How can arts be used to help refugee students integrate into school? Now, it's a really interesting topic. I'm giving the floor to Nathalia to explain further. Nathalia, can you enlighten us, please?
Okay, so I want to explain a little bit why we chose it and a little bit of how our workshop is going to be conducted. So first of all, we are firm believers that education and arts are the answer to a lot of our current problems, but they are often overseen. Many people see the arts as something elitist and distant and inaccessible, but we are convinced that the arts should be a tool for everyone to communicate and express themselves. Arts can help us connect on an emotional level like few other things can do. After all, we are all artists. So we are willing to explore the links between arts and education and the impacts that they can generate. One of the current problems that we think that arts can contribute to solving is the issue of refugee integration, which is a hot topic due to the migration crisis nowadays. We are interested in investigating how arts have the power to create links between people from different backgrounds to build a more inclusive environment in the school. So the format of this workshop was thought to give participants artistic experiences so that they can experiment how thinking through arts processes can impact their interaction with the group. The goal is not to find definitive solutions to refugee integration, but to raise awareness to the problem and experiment how arts can empower those involved in artistic creation. So the idea is that in each task, you will be invited to engage in an artistic process. We want to stress the relevance of the process more than the product in these tasks. We don't expect a masterpiece in 15 minutes, so we will be glad to see the work in progress that you will share with us. We will give you space to share about your process and creation, but if you don't want to, sharing your art is not mandatory. No pressure, no judgment. We hope you all enjoy the workshop.
Thank you, Nathalia, for explaining. Now I would like Anaïs to start the workshop, and I'm giving the floor to her.
So first, I would like to present you what's going to happen during this workshop. So first, we're going to have a short introduction about what we mean by inclusion and also some background information about how arts can foster inclusion in the school setting. And then we will have a first activity about the definition of refugee. And we will have some time to share our thoughts on the topic and then a conclusion of the activity. Then we will have a second activity about the challenges faced by refugees. And then again, we will give you some space to exchange about the topic. And there will be a short presentation by Onnesha. And finally, we will have a third activity about how we can help refugees integrate into the school setting. And after a discussion about what the ideas that you will have come up with, we will have a break and end the workshop with a debriefing time. So first, I would like to present you some ideas about inclusion in the school setting, and first tell you what we mean by inclusion. So a lot of researchers have constructed different definitions of inclusion, but the one that we have chosen to rely on today for our workshop is that inclusion means allowing every student to have their own individual needs fulfilled while enabling them to connect with their peers and feel motivated, confident, and engaged. And in that process, we think that there are several concepts that are really important. So first, one of the first concepts is integration. So that means that one group of people or an individual is allowed to integrate into another group, but none of these groups are imposing their values or ideas to the others. They are equal. And then also intercultural education can be really helpful to foster inclusion because it allows people to become more open-minded to difference and to become more empathic to others. And finally, adaptive education is also one solution to inclusion because it means that it's a teaching method in which the teacher adapts to the specificities of each of their students so that they can fulfill their own potential. So then we can wonder how arts can enhance students' inclusion in the school setting. So one first idea that we have is that giving students space to practice arts in the school setting allows us to develop their own voice and become confident in it. So for example, if they are not comfortable with verbal language, either because they don't speak as the same language as their classmates, or they just don't like to speak in the classroom, practicing arts can help them express themselves in another way and overcome this barrier. And then also arts can help to create a safe space for students to express themselves. And finally, because they involve skills such as emotional intelligence or creativity, it's good for people who struggle with academic achievement because they can regain confidence in their own capabilities. Then another idea is that arts can help develop empathy, listening, and cooperation, because when students engage together in an artistic creation, they have to listen to others and try to make compromise so that everybody's ideas is integrated in the final common creation. And so when they learn to listen to others, they also learn to become more empathic to people's struggles, and also to perceive difference as something to learn from and not as something to fear. But in order for arts to foster all these good aspects, some conditions must be united, must be created by the teacher in the classroom. So first, it's really important to make sure that the classroom is a safe space where students feel free and safe to express themselves and that they're not going to be judged. And then also it's important to allocate sufficient time to each artistic activity so that they have time to foster positive outcomes. And then it is really important to never force students to give a verbal explanation of their artistic creation because it could be counterproductive if the student is not comfortable speaking. And then the expertise and experience of the teacher is also really necessary to make the artistic creation positive. And finally, the process of creation should be more valued than the outcome because otherwise arts can seem very inaccessible and people can feel like they don't have the skills to engage in artistic creations. And so the result can be exclusion instead of inclusion. So here are some sources that I used. And so then we would like you to engage in the first activity where you will try to answer the question, what does being a refugee mean? So in this activity, we would like you to work in groups. So we're going to open breakout rooms, and you will have 15 minutes to complete the activity. And so first, we would like you to think individually about what being a refugee means to you, and come up with a short sentence about what your definition of being a refugee is. And then together with your group, we would like you to put all these sentences that you will have created individually together into a calligram. So here are some examples of what a calligram can be. It's a poem in which the words are used to create a picture. So for example, here on the left, there is a poem about autumn. So the artist decided to use the words to shape a leaf. And then on the right, there is another calligram where the theme is a bird. And so they decided to draw a bird with the words. And so we would like you to do the same kind of poem with your different sentences and definitions of refugees. Try to come up with a picture that fits with the ideas that you have in your own sentences. So for that, you have several possibilities. We're going to give you a link to a Jamboard. And on this Jamboard, you can either directly draw on it with different tools that are accessible in Jamboard, or if you prefer drawing on a paper, you can decide that one of the persons in your group can draw on a paper and then take a picture and upload it to the Jamboard. Do you have any questions before we start opening the breakout rooms?
So the link for the Jamboard's on the chat.
So if there's no questions, I'm opening the breakout rooms. Please join the breakout rooms, and there is a link on the link of the Jamboard on the chat. You can draw there. Thank you.
Will they put me as a participant?
You can
Don't join.
Hey, I had to sign out and sign in again to change to my computer.
I think everybody's back from the breakout rooms. So I'm going to share my screen and we can see what you did during the 15 minutes. Okay, so maybe someone from group 1 wants to share what was your idea and what you discussed about in the breakout rooms and what you created.
Well, talking about our team, we're still doing it, so we will take a little time.
Okay, no problem.
We actually drew out our calligram, or are currently drawing it out. We didn't attempt to make it in here because we weren't sure how to. But do you want us just to talk about what we talked about in our small group?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about, first we started talking about how the media maybe can use the portrayal of refugees. And then we talked about the difference between an immigrant and a refugee, because some of our comments and definitions definitely cross lines with being an immigrant, seeking opportunities, for example. That's not always what a refugee is doing, but maybe that's what a refugee is doing along the way. And we talked a lot about the uncertainty, the confusion, the lack of knowing where you're going, having to navigate a new system, not even knowing where you'll end up. Yeah, and these are some of the words that came up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think even though you said that this is not your calligram, I think what you wrote on the Jamboard is quite well shows this idea of confusion, because you wrote the word all around the page. So I think it's quite good actually, even though if it's not your we all carried well. So thank you very much for sharing. And maybe someone from group 2 wants to explain what you discussed and what you decided to draw.
Does somebody from our group want to talk? Shall I? Anybody? No?
I think, Anna, you can.
Okay, thanks. Well, we mainly talked about what the word refugee means in terms of positive and negative connotations. And first we talked about how it's hard to see a positive connotation with refugee nowadays, especially when we say like a refugee family or a refugee child. There's not a lot of positive things that come to mind. And then as we went on, we started to talk about what the word refuge means. And the word refuge is actually a safe haven and a safe place where you seek safety and security, and regardless of who you are, where you've been from, and where you're going. So the word itself is actually a positive word, an inclusive word. But the way we use it now is not necessarily that way. And we just talked about long roads and this, place of being in between. And so we originally were going to make a spiral, but obviously it being on this Jamboard, it kind of turned into this kind of winding road. So yeah, and not too many words, just a few, because we had a lot of discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what you talked about is really interesting, because it's true that we tend to always picture refugees, if not in a negative way, but at least as victims, and we rarely talk about them as like people who have skills and who are able. And so it's also interesting for the what we're going to do later in our workshop, because our goal also with arts is to show that it can empower people and make them believe in their capabilities, and also help drawing a more positive picture of them. So thank you very much for sharing. And then group 3, did you have time to finish what you wanted to do?
No, I'm still doing it. The thing is that when art is involved, time must be more.
Yes. But even if you didn't finish drawing, maybe you can.
Well, maybe someone of the group could talk, and while I finish.
Yeah.
When I entered group 3, I heard some interesting discussion about nature and refugees. So maybe you could enlighten us about that too.
I started talking about that because I misspelled the word nurture. And then I said, well, it's a little bit like nurture, but that's like nature and nature. So I started talking about nature. And anyway, Finland has a twofold learning thing. Like everybody learns through nature and nurture. Nature can mean the mother's caring and all that also, but and your genetics, but nature is your environment. So whatever you experience in your new environment is what you're learning partly. And we talked about how I went skiing and met some exchange students from Brazil, and they talked about the difference between Brazil and Finland and so on. I think there's a huge difference, and people get ideas from the nature as well as the education. But well, what I had in my idea, what I was trying to say is that a refugee is someone who goes from one dangerous place to find refuge in another, and then they're there to learn. I think a refugee is basically a special type of learner group who has come into a new environment, a new educational environment, and they're there to learn new things. But they're different from an immigrant in that they still have the hope that they could go back to their home country when things cool off and bring new ideas there. So I think as a learning group, they're kind of special in that they're going to be the spreaders of new ideas that they learn in their refuge place, wherever that may be. So I think they're kind of like a hope for their torn up place, that they can come back there and bring back a new kind of order. What do y'all think?
Yeah, that's true. I absolutely agree with you. And Maria, did you finish the drawing? Can we see it? Because we don't need a beautiful picture or something like that. We can see whatever you did.
Well, I'm trying to do a tree. You can see it because it's not even close. I'm trying to do a tree, and this is the branches with all of our words.
Yeah, I can
It's
see
supposed to be a tree because we also like talking, Brian, that when he was talking about nature, well, the tree represents life. And we're talking about refugees and we're talking about a place to be safe and home. Why not represent this through a drawing that represents also that's the tree of life? Yeah.
Really wonderful.
Can you read some of the things that are on the tree?
I could read all of them. Someone who is forced to leave their country finds refuge in another. Is nature there and learns new things with the hope they may someday return home to share their new ideas. That's one of the ideas. The other one is looking for a new possibility to build a home, a safe space to grow and experience the wonders of life. The other one, someone who has been forced to leave their place due to war, persecution, or conflicts. And the last one, a person who has been forced to flee their home, often due to war, persecution, and seek safety in another country. So here we find like we're all on the same page and we're all seeking the same thing, that is a place to live safely in home, like the tree of life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really great.
Yeah. Meg, you said you have something?
I can't hear you.
And Meg said that they were done with their calligram. So if you want to share it too, you can.
I want you to try to guess what it is, though. I don't know if it's clear.
Is it a river?
A bird.
It's a bird.
Yeah.
It's a flying hawk.
It's like I just Googled like migrating bird, and they have long necks and big wings. So I hope my group is happy with it too.
That's really nice.
Beautiful.
Very impressed.
Thank you all so much for your art. It's really, really great to see you sharing it. And now I actually would like to talk, because there are many ways of defining something, and I think poems are a powerful way to do that. But to go a little bit more academic, maybe, I wanted to show you the definition from the UN, from actually the UN High Commission for Refugees. So they say that a refugee is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So I think it's maybe important to have this in mind, because this is what's going to ground many of the rights that refugee people will have access to. So yeah, this is another definition that is not as poetic as yours.
Could I just add something to that based on what I had seen as a refugee, as someone who hopes to go back to their country someday? We could say insert at the moment, unable or unwilling, but hopefully in the future might be able to come back and establish some sort of new ideas in their home country. I don't know.
And this is one of the actions actually from the High Commission of Refugees. They have integration, but they also have like repatriation is also one of their possibilities for the refugee people. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you all for your wonderful drawing. Maria, go ahead.
I think so. That while hearing Brian, I can feel the same thing, because I myself was also a long time ago, different cases, but I wasn't part of my country. I had to flee away from it because of war reasons. And I definitely agree with Brian, and you always have this hope inside yourself that you are going to go back home, But even though you know that it's not home, but your new home is home, it's weird. And then when you get home, your home is not your home, but then it is. But it takes a long time to readjust yourself in your own home. It's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's great to hear from you. And
we are really glad to have you here in our workshop. We can really connect the team to their personal life. So thanks for being here and sharing your experiences. But since we have short time, we have to move on. And now, okay, we are going to have another activity in our breakout rooms. And I would like you all to discuss that. What do you think? What kind of challenges do the refugee students face in a classroom? You can share your experiences or share your thoughts and then make a group drawing about the challenges that you think a refugee student face in a classroom. The Jamboard link is the same. You can find it in the chat too. And we are now opening the breakout rooms. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. So I heard some great discussions going on and about the creative notion of drawings. So I loved those and we would love to see more of your drawings. But before that, I'm going to talk about the potential challenges that some of you might have discussed and some of them might be new to you. So all of you have discussed that what kind of challenges the refugee students face in a classroom. So here are some of the challenges that I found are very addressable right in the moment. So first of all, the first potential challenge that the refugee students face is that they're caught between the home culture and the mainstream culture. The school is one of the most focal points where the mainstream culture is introduced and instilled gradually. But most of the time, the process is rushed and the students, especially the refugee students, cannot adopt to the norms of the new culture. It is more kind of difficult for those who suffer from the post-traumatic stress disorder, which is also known as PTSD. The second potential challenge in the classrooms is that the classrooms do not provide any mental support to the refugee students. Often they tend to ignore the psychosocial needs of these students, which can ultimately lead to the long-term health issues such as depression, anxiety, and many other psychological illnesses. The third challenge that the refugee students face is that they have a huge academic gap compared to the peers of their host country. The disruption in their educational experience leads to this challenge, and unfortunately, the classrooms do not provide much assistance to help them cope with the whole situation and do better academically. Then the fourth challenge is that most of the schools do not have different teaching methods to meet the needs of their diverse students. They apply the one model fits all approach, which is not very helpful for the refugee students. Another challenge is that the classroom environment cannot always promote community building for the refugee students. Community building helps greatly in the healing process of the traumatic experiences that the refugee students faced in the past. Therefore, the community building process is very much, community building process lacks very much in the school and the classroom environment. Lastly, there can be some unexpected occurrence of events which can be another challenge for the refugee students. For example, fire drills, unknown school drills, or surprise visitors, etc., can make the refugee students feel unsafe and can even trigger their past traumatic events, which involve loud noises or turning off the lights and so on. So these are the most crucial challenges that needs to be addressed. And there are also a lot of other challenges, but due to the time-consuming workshop, we cannot address all of them. Now, we would like to look at your drawings that you drew in your breakout rooms. So if you could put your drawings in the Jamboard, and I would give the floor to Nathalia to talk about those drawings more.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go through the drawings, and then I'm going to try to categorize a little bit of the challenges that you came up with so that we can work with them for the next activity, okay? So group one, can you, well, I think we can read a lot of what you thought, but can you elaborate a little bit of what you thought here?
Honestly, we mostly were just talking, and then I was doodling this while we were talking, because that's something I like to do while doing academic work. But we were talking a lot about how several things that y'all already mentioned, but how students are sorted, or like they try to sort students in a system, and it's very hard if you have a refugee student, because depending on where they're from, you may not even know their age, you may not even know what their home language is. And so if you're placing them in school or school programs to help them adjust, to even give them like academic services, it's like, do you base it on their language, like how well they speak English? Do you base it on their previous school experience? If they have no school, do you base it on their age? We also talked about how there can be connection between students who are all refugees, even if they're not necessarily from the same place. That can be a source of support and adaptation for them if they have like if they're around other refugee students. And then we also talked about how sometimes these students can be misplaced in like sheltered or special needs classes, even if they don't have like a special need, but just because of their language level. Or students are like mislabeled pretty often if they don't have a high enough level of English to like explain their situation or pass like a certain test.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think that maybe from here we can have language. Can you check it? I have their brain open for me, please. Sure. Then you talked about grades and past school experiences. Can you put the gym? Thanks. And then, can you, yeah, okay. This is like being a refugee, being from the countries, like how they connect with other refugees. Is that so, Matt?
Yeah, or like them being compared and having to compete with students from that country, because I feel like a lot of times, at least in the US, students and their families are expected to be able to compete with the like US American students who like know how to use email, who know how to use all forms of technology, who know how to read the language. Like administration in the US at least expects the refugee families to still live up to those standards, like to be able to like use their email and Google Drive like efficiently, even though that's an unrealistic expectation. So like the comparison and expectation of the home or the host country on the refugee and their family.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and special classes. And H. Oh, what did I do? Okay, thank you so much. So group 2, can you talk a little bit about yours?
That's a beautiful drawing.
I am really
must
impressed
say.
that you made this with a mouse.
Okay, I can go, but I would love if someone from the group helps me out with explaining all of it. But yeah, we draw the picture of tomatoes. We were talking first about the barriers that children have in school. And at first it was also language and how much support did they get, and with bullying. And here we were talking about what do they need that they would be better. And we were like, okay, yeah, if they have enough support, they can grow. So that's why we draw the tomatoes that need like something stable, something to hold them up so they can grow. Otherwise they don't. So yeah, that's why this picture is about. And it was really a nice discussion because we were talking about our experiences, how if we ever worked with refugees, how was it? Yeah, Anna or somebody else from the group, if you want to join, I don't know what else to mention.
I think you did a very good job. That was the main idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Thanks
so much. I love the metaphor of the tomatoes that need support till they can grow. So I think, well, language you have already addressed here. We can talk about support. You talk about traumas. Bullying. I will need more boxes. That's nice. So I think I'll just add things for the bullying one. The culture shock. Yeah, I think. What else? Vulnerability. Creating a culture of inclusion, you mean the lack of creating, right? Like
we were talking about how to make it in a class, that the teacher has to make a safe space that everyone is accepted, and also with the students that if they make someone feel okay, the bullying will lesser, like they won't have so much bullying, and it really helps with the whole situation of learning.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. And then group 3, finally. You did it on paper, right?
So we did it on paper, and maybe I can just quick, I don't know how well you can see this. We did sort of a group of potential refugee students in a group, and here's some of their problems or challenges. First one was just Finnish. It's crazy. So it makes you crazy. And then you have trauma. And then you're wishing, maybe you were back home, and although there's trauma from that. And then what do they call it? Like culture shock. At some point there's culture shock and home trauma that gangs up on you. And then just writing skills are a huge challenge. We talked about that. Like, how do you actually, Megan talked about in America, how you're demanded to compete with those local skill levels. And it's in Finnish, trying to write might be a challenge. It is for me, at least. And then what was here? Some people come as orphans, or they lose their family members at home, and they come with a broken family and they have to rebuild. So rebuilding those family relationships or just social relationships, like also somebody said that they somehow find that with other refugees, but I think it's also important that they can find it in the local community among the local population. And if they don't have a parent anymore, somebody who would take that place, even the teacher, I don't know. But then you have over here, they need to develop self-confidence. Maybe they're from a background where they weren't even, like a woman wasn't even given the chance to be educated because they were looked at as unworthy of an education. So they come here and they have to build up their self-confidence. They have to look at how can I grow to the point where I can take care of myself and, be fully self-sufficient. So building the self-confidence. So that was like some of the things we talked about.
Thank you so much. You really brought a lot of topics. Okay, thank you, everyone. So now we have all these challenges that we brainstormed. And what I would like to do for our last activity is you are going to choose one of these. It doesn't need to be one that you came up with. It can be one that you heard someone talking about. So one of the challenge. And then you're going to create either a song or a poem explaining how you think that arts can help addressing this specific challenge that you chose. So for example, if you choose language barrier, how can you use arts to overcome the problem of language barrier? Okay, and then you can put your poem or song or the lyric of your song on the Jamboard. We're going to put the Jamboard on the chat again. So just a quick look at all the challenges so you can think a little bit about them. And then we're going to put you in a breakout room and you have 15 minutes. Any questions? If not, we're going to open the breakout rooms now. We made it. I'll share the screen. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. And now we'll be able to see the wonderful things that you created. I was taking a look, getting a sneak peek for myself before you came back. So is there anyone from group one who is willing to read your poem for us? Or we can read it too. It's a poem.
I guess I can read it. Okay. Well, it started as a haiku, but then it evolved into something longer and a bit different. Not present or past, refuge they came to seek here, standing alone with others, changing seasons fast. Language I don't speak, but drawing and math I can, showing myself to you all. Friends I hope I have, creating and connecting.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I really like how you brought the drawing and math, like two kinds of language as a way to overcome language barriers. I also really like the metaphor of the seasons changing fast, as probably the life of these people are changing fast as the seasons. So thank you so much for this. Anyone wants to talk about the poem or? So we can go to group.
We're almost finished.
Oh, yeah.
We were using this song called Sing by Gary Barlow, and we took the lyrics and we talked about what parts of it stood out to us, because it's a very good song for talking about inclusion. And we focused on trauma and creating a culture of inclusion. So it was mainly like taking pieces of this song and then changing it. That was our inspiration. So hold on. Hold on a second. Okay. It's there on the second one. It just says, it goes, sing it loud, sing it clear, knowing everyone will hear you. Make some noise, find your voice. Tonight, sing it stronger, sing together. Your mark will last forever. No, it isn't easy. Stand your ground because, and then the bottom got cut off there. Stand your ground because the world is listening to what you say.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that is the objective that we had with this workshop, was showing how the arts can be a powerful tool to make your voice being heard, and as a way of empowerment. So thank you so much for bringing this to your poem.
I can put the link to this one in the chat.
I was thinking that music is a very strong part of the arts for them.
Yeah, and I think it connects to people so universally, like music. Even when you don't understand the lyrics, like how many times have you heard a song that you didn't know what they were talking about and you could still connect emotionally to it, and you're like, oh, this song is so beautiful, even though you don't even know what it's talking about. So yeah, it's so, music is so powerful. So thank you so much. And then last but not least, group 3. Can one of you read your poem for us, please?
Yeah, I can read it. So we were thinking of trauma as one of the challenges, and people come in with physical and psychological trauma, so that symbolized by broken wings, broken hearts. And that's the title, Broken Wings and Broken Hearts. So I was pushed from my nest and fell to the ground, breaking my wing on the way. As I wandered alone, my heart broke also, and I had nowhere to stay. But a friend picked me up and gave me a home and taught me once again to fly. Now my heart has new hope. I will rebuild my nest someday before I die.
Wow, thank you so much. I love the metaphors that you guys are bringing. It's so beautiful. I said in the beginning of this workshop that I wasn't expecting masterpieces in 15 minutes, but I've seen masterpieces all the time during this workshop, and I'm so impressed with everything that everyone has brought. It's really beautiful. Thank you all for sharing your art with us. It's oh, my battery just died. Okay. It's been an amazing experience. So now we have a 10 minutes break, and then we have our debriefing. Okay. So we'll be back at 11:30, 11:45. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Is everyone back from the break? Okay, it seems like everyone is here. So now we're going to end this workshop with a short debriefing to know more about how you felt throughout the workshop and what you thought about it. So I let Onnesha introduce the questions.
First of all, thank you all for your lovely creations and wonderful process. Like you connected so well through arts, as you all can already feel that. So we're going to start our debriefing session with these questions. You can choose one of them, or you can try to come up with new concern or any comment you would like to mention. So the questions are: how did you feel throughout the workshops? What did you learn? Do you think arts are a good way to integrate refugee students? What will you take from this workshop? What questions do you have after this workshop? Or any more thoughts or questions that you would like to bring up? The floor is yours. You can comment on anything. Thank you.
I could start with a comment. Thank you very much for the workshop. Lots of really thought-provoking ideas. Great to have time to discuss these. One thing that came to my mind actually in the break is a lot of what we've been talking about and doing, I feel, relates to feelings and emotions. So then I started thinking, well, how well equipped are teachers to work with feelings and emotions with students in classroom, and how much is covered in the teacher education program? And also the teachers' feelings and emotions. So this is what will I take from this workshop? It's to myself in my next Seminar 3 class, when we have the chance, which is probably in a week's time, to actually discuss this with my students about different feelings and emotions that students in their classrooms might have, and different ways that we might work with them. So thank you for doing my lesson preparation for me. Great.
That was so thoughtful of you. Thank you very much, Ross. Yes, we have to think from the teachers' perspectives too, like how they can accommodate things, and how the education system actually works for all of the students. There are so many issues that needs to be mentioned before actually trying to implement some policies. Thank you for your comment. It was so nice.
I can actually talk for myself that I have a drama education major, and I haven't been taught how to deal with the emotions of the students. This is something that I have been teaching myself to do since I started teaching. So yeah, I really think that it's something that lacks in the teacher education.
You know what? There's something. Art therapy. I don't know if someone is familiarized with art therapy. It's therapy through arts. And arts is different kinds of branches. And one of those is dancing, and how emotions and body performance can deal with emotions. So I think that nowadays we've seen that it's ridiculous that just now we're talking about well-being and mental health as open as we are, because previously in history, it was like a taboo. It was even closer, like it was easier to talk about sex rather than talk about mental health. And nowadays, I really believe that education has to be in touch with psychology. Like I'm telling you this because I did my bachelor's in psychology. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but the path that I started was first to be able to work with humans. You need to understand humans. So I think that this is something that has to be part of education, how to deal with mental health, like Nata was saying, like how is it possible that we, as teachers in different institutions, in different backgrounds, there's not real based emotion education. Okay, I could keep on going. Bye.
Maybe I could add something as a question, because when you talk about arts, I think quite often the best venue for doing arts is in a group meeting together or in a workshop or something where there's actual artistic things like tools and musical instruments or whatever. But if you look at the modern situation, we have more distance learning. So it's a little bit harder to express yourself, I think, through that distance medium. So I think that's one challenge, but I don't know. What are your thoughts about like how can it be arranged that should be like in pairs or small groups, or how can it be arranged that creative activities can be given, you know, for the students to create? Well, if you think of poetry, that can be a creative process that can be done virtually, but other things like music might be more of a challenge. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, so I had the experience of teaching drama online for 1.5 years, and it's not the most pleasant thing, but when I was told that I was going to move online and that they were going to keep the drama curriculum, I was like, that is not possible. I don't know how to do it. And eventually it happened, and it happened for 1.5 years. So I think that it was far from ideal, and that when we are together in face to face, the connections are much easier to be done. But it was possible, and I think that it was better than not having it. And it was a moment for students to express all the feelings that they were having about COVID, all the fears that they were having. And for me, it was really important I think that it always depends on your goal, to do it in small groups or big groups or individually. But I tried to do things in groups as much as I could, because I knew that the students were missing connecting with each other so much because they are not going to school. So yes. But it's hard. Even this workshop, we were planning to do it face to face, and then we had to move it online, and we're like, well, let's do it, because it's better to do arts online than not doing it at all, I think.
The challenge for our group, because nobody knew how to use the Jamboard, so that's why we were showing you the paper. You know, is like a little bit different if you're in a, you know, a mutual setting, but it worked okay.
But this is the kind of thing we are trying to establish, that you don't have to follow a certain pattern or rule every time, because people were operating Jamboard, but you didn't know. But that's not the main point. You drew it on paper with pen, and that's how you showed it, and that's how we are going to appreciate that. The whole point of thing was that you don't have to follow a certain systematic way that everybody does. You can be isolated, but you can be your own, you know, in own power, and you can show to the world that you can do something on your own. You don't have to follow the rules. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was really important for me as a teacher to accept the resources that my students had, and like, oh, this is my suggestion, but if you have better ways, better media to do it, be my guest. You know, like, I don't have the best answers always. I am learning how to do it online as much as they are. So having them on board on how they would, like, building up the lesson together, I think it was always my best tool as a teacher online. And face-to-face, I guess.
Ross has a comment in the chat. This workshop demonstrates art online is very possible. Yes, Ross, that's very true. We learned that too from this workshop, that arts can be done through online. We don't have to be in person all the time. Thanks for your comment. Anybody else has anything to share or want to talk about these questions?
And I think it connects to, oh, sorry, but I think it even connects us with people we weren't expecting to. Like, some of us are not in Oulu right now, and we can still be together. So But sorry, go ahead.
I just want to comment that somehow music was on my mind when I came into this workshop, and somebody expressed that. But I think doing things online with music, I think it's a big possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, the music teachers in my school, they did so many great stuff, like using editing resources and things like that. Choir work and like band work is really hard because of the delays, but all the rest they were doing pretty much the same that they would do in the regular classroom. Anyone else has anything to add?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, there are some comments coming on in the chat. Okay, I'm going to read it out. So Yunko said, I realized that I haven't thought about refugee students in schools and I don't have any experience with them. I want to try. Of course, only not refugees, but yes. Okay, cool. That's good to know. Thanks, Yunko. Then Anna added, I think the workshop was very well designed and it brought up discussion through the arts, not just about them. Thank you. And thank you too. The workshop was not going to be possible if you guys weren't here. So thanks to all of you and thanks to all of your creations.
Yes, and the availability that you had to do it, like, and your engagement was really touching to us. We were really scared and we were like, will people come on board? This is like not the regular discussion that we usually have in universities. Will people understand what we're trying to do, that we're trying to think through art? And I think that you made it happen in a very beautiful way. We kept saying it to each other, believe in the process of the arts because they happen. Like magic happens when it has to happen. And I think magic happened now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks to you all. We are running out of time, I guess.
If you still have burning questions, you can add them to the burning questions Jamboard. We're going to add it on the chat. And also, you're welcome to come to the coffee chats to continue this conversation and bring many others. So thank you all so much and have a good day and rest of BQ week.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 From the oh.
Should we stop?